Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of CxO Tech Talks on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C levels across the globe. CxO Global Forum has been contributing to the knowledge economy, and we take massive pride in our members, our thought leaders, the movers and shakers of the corporate industry who have made a considerable amount of difference and influence in the market. They are not only domain experts, but also the torchbearers of knowledge in their fields that they're working in. Every time for tech talks, our member Hassan Zuberi, who's from EliteVAD in Dubai, he's been very forthcoming and the co-moderator of this tech talk series that we have going on. Hassan's been a very big contributor, and this was his initial idea. So a big shout out to him, and thank you, Hassan, for coming forward with this idea.
Thanks.
And with the Tech Talks, we try and bring to you speakers from around the globe who are going to be contributing to your knowledge and information about everything related to tech. So today, we've got the worldwide head of sales at Authologics with us, Kamber. And Kamber, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Anza. Thank you for having me.
Hope you're doing well,
And
and I know you're in quarantine, but Kamber, just going to tell our audience that Kamber has joined us from the UK, and today's topic is something very interesting and very pertinent to security concerns these days. So I know everyone has heard of this buzzword called multi-factor authentication. We all keep talking about it. We all keep getting notifications from either our WhatsApp or our Gmail account, so on and so forth. And oftentimes, people just either click yes or no without even fully understanding the implications that it has on security. So we're going to talk to Kamber a little more about multi-factor authentication. So, Amber, just starting out, so what exactly is multi-factor authentication and what role does it play in security?
so it's a very simple thing. We often use it in our daily lives. When you try to log into your bank account on your mobile app, you get an OTP, or you try to pay something online, you get an OTP via SMS. Now, OTP is what is your authentication. Multi-factor authentication is giving multiple layers of it. So, say for example, in simple words, your password is one thing that is a part of multi-factor, and the second thing is your OTP. Uh, these are now called two factors of authentication. Okay. Now, the third factor could be a biometric, your Face ID, where you are located, a number of things. So the more authentication factors you keep adding, it just counts as multi-factor. But most commonly known are two-factor authentications, and most people are used to it because they use their internet banking or mobile banking.
Right. Camber, that's you have elaborated on it, but why is there a need for multi-factor authentication? Because yes, you're right, but sometimes it's such a hassle when I'm trying to use my banking app and trying to transfer funds. You have to wait for the OTP to come via mobile, and then via
Mm,
your email and so on and so forth. Even with WhatsApp, I know that times now when I log on to WhatsApp and I open the app, I'm asked for
mhm.
my PIN. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, have this question that,
Mm,
technology is supposed to make our lives easier, right? So can we not use
yeah.
something as simple as biometrics, or why is it such a big key factor in security? What are the concerns?
Right. So, multi-factor authentication, what it does is, I mean, what we need to understand is, anywhere where we can get hacked, we need to use a number of authentication methods. to secure ourselves. Okay, now 15 years ago, National Institute of Standards and Technology, they came up with, the complex password where you had to use uppercase, lowercase, exclamation mark, so on and so forth to make it really secure. That didn't make it secure. And pretty much everyone who got hacked, there's a recent Gartner survey that says 80% of all the hacks start from weak or stolen passwords. So if they're all weak and stolen, okay, or if the passwords are not as reliable, then how can we secure ourselves? Okay, so NIST, being the international body that secures or that provides standards, what it also suggests is, sure, the passwords are now as not as strong, okay, or if you're using strong password, doesn't really matter. You're getting phished, you type your own password in and the other person can get it, okay. So you need to have a number of different types of authentication on top of password. So that's where the need for multi-factor authentication comes. Now, let me give you an example. And so you gave a very good example of your banking. Do you want to say something?
Yes, I was just going to say that it's very interesting how you explain that, there are so many security breaches that can happen. But yes, when we're talking about multi-factor authentication, I'm sure you're going to give us some examples as well. But before we move on with
Sure.
this, I was just going to ask that this need to authenticate, right? We often see it in the form of Google as well. Sometimes when I'm typing for a search, and they'll ask us whether or not this person is a robot. Like for example, identify, um,
Sure.
which images
Mm-hmm.
have traffic lights in them, or for
Exactly.
instance,
Mm,
type out a schema revert. So is that part of
yeah.
multi-factor authentication as well?
Uh, no, that's called another captcha. That's called captcha.
Yeah,
Interesting
capture.
story, by the way. Captcha, if when it asks you for traffic light, identify all the traffic lights. So it takes those images from unstructured sources. So say, for example, magazine who have
Mm-hmm.
traffic lights or a number of pictures where there are traffic lights in it, and it's not structured, they don't know where traffic lights are. They're actually asking you captcha to identify those traffic lights so that they know, and you are actually filling out that. Apart from that, no, that's not multi-factor authentication. That's you trying to prove that you're not a robot. Okay, because
Yeah.
nowadays bots are being used in a number of things, even in marketing, or if you go ask for customer support, a lot of places they start with a bot. Okay, and then
Mm-hmm.
it'll pass it on to an actual human customer service representative to you. So robots are everywhere, we know that. And in order for them to not get hacked, they are just preventing themselves.
Right, absolutely. So, could you give us some examples of what where multi-factor authentication is used? Like I gave you the example of WhatsApp and maybe some products
Hmm.
that you've been working on.
So uh, I work with a product called multi-factor Authologics. Okay, now Authologics is a very different type of multi-factor authentication technology. It it's got say for example, it's got 4 or 5 different types of technologies in it, but one of them I'm going to talk to you about, which is quite different to the traditional ones that we use. It's a matrix box. It's like a Sudoku, the game. Okay,
Right.
and you've got 4 different
Yeah.
boxes, and they're all colored in different ways, and they've got numbers in it, right? What you have to do is you have to set a pattern on it, on an empty Sudoku grid, say, for example, if I give you that example, on an empty board, you set a pattern, just like on Android phone, you set it up. And then that's it. You never touch it back again. You touch it to set up that thing. And when the numbers show up, you use those numbers to enter them in wherever you need to enter as an OTP, and that becomes your OTP. So it's different from getting a text message, email, or a secret question type of um, uh, multi-factor authentication or fingerprint or Face ID. It's completely different from that. And that's a product I've been working with. It's fairly good. A lot of companies, they use it. But in terms of a real life example of where multi-factor authentication will be used, what I'll do is I'll reiterate on the banking example, because everyone uses banking. If I go and give example in government, defense sector, so on and so forth, not everyone might be familiar with that. So, okay, so imagine you have a bank account with a bank XYZ. Okay, I'm not going to name them just because no favoritism there. So you have a bank account from XYZ bank, and you're trying to log into your internet banking account. Now, you can log in via username, password, and then the OTP that you receive, right? Now, imagine if you were sent an email from your bank saying, "Hi, Anza, we've recently suspected a fraud in your account. Can you please log into your internet banking and make sure that you accept or decline the transaction that we suspect as fraud." 99% you will go and you will do that. Right now, imagine when you go to that bank account, you enter your username, same thing, username, password, OTP,
Yeah,
you log in, okay, and you accept that or reject that. Just think, if that is not your actual bank, that is an imposter which has completely copied XYZ Bank's website, looks exactly the same, no different at all. The way you log in, your username, your password, the difference will be when you try to log into your username and password. First time, it will give you an error. Second time, it will allow you. Why? Because first time
absolutely.
it's capturing your password, email address, and the OTP so that they can do the transaction in the background. So it'll give you an error for the first time. Second time, it'll allow you in. Now that is called man in the middle attack. Okay, it's an actual
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
an actual thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Man in the middle attack is an actual thing. So I'm giving you just one example of where multi-factor authentication could be used. So imagine if you did not have your OTP in place. It was just username and password. So then the hacker in the background who's taken your username and password can actually log into the XYZ original actual XYZ bank's website, make a transaction from your account because you have already given your password to them. Okay. uh,
Absolutely.
Transfer the money from your account into whichever account, and you will get an error because you're not getting to log in, you're trying various different passwords. So this guy in the background who's looking at your history, he's just laughing. He's saying, "Oh, I'm getting all the passwords from Anza. Great, let's try everything that I
Right.
can."
Absolutely.
So
And yeah, sorry, go on.
that
Go
is
on, Kamber.
exactly where you need another step of authentication. So now
Yeah.
one-time code, OTP, by the way, if you elaborate, okay,
One
OTP
time
is an
pin.
acronym for one-time pin, right? One-time pin
Yeah,
code. Now,
absolutely.
one-time pin code can only be used once. So if your bank sends it once, either you can use it or that person can use it, and it expires in 30
Absolutely.
seconds.
Yeah.
That's why you need
Right.
those hurdles.
Absolutely. Yeah. This example has really put things into perspective for us. And now I found an unfound appreciation for a new appreciation for the OTP in particular, which was annoying, but the added layer of security is that much more important. However,
Mm.
Kamber, with coming back to multi-factor authentication and how people can misuse this very layer of security that we have, is that very recently I know a celebrity here. She comes on national television, and since she had one of her socials with two-factor authentication, what happened was that uh, somebody got access to her account, and obviously it was someone that was a hacker. And what he did
Mhm.
was he messaged her very cleverly and said, you've probably received a code on your mobile phone, and the SMS. Could you tell me the code because you won a prize, and we need that code to claim for you to claim that prize. And in
with
her
6 M's.
naivety, in her naivety, she shared that the pin, the code with that gentleman,
Yeah.
and he got access to her socials, and it was something that's of great concern.
Yeah.
What can we do in such circumstances? What would be your advice to people who are now using multi-factor authentication?
Well, if you receive a phone call
Use
from
their
Mobilink
brains also.
saying, "Hi, you're being called from Mobilink. You've won iPhone 12 Pro Max," just hang up the phone. Just say,
Yeah.
"Thank you. I don't want that." Just because, they will say, "Oh, why don't you give me your account number because we need to take 1 rupee from your account." Is that okay? 1 rupee? 1 rupee is not too much. This is just to show that you're an actual person. We'll take 1 rupee from your
Yeah,
account, and
absolutely.
in return, you will get an iPhone Pro, whatever, Max
12
delivered
Pro
to your
Max.
home. Give me your home address. Exactly. Give me your home address. What's your CNIC? What's your OTP that has just landed on your phone? They'll try and add those things between the things that you don't really feel. You're like, okay, fine. I'll give you my CNIC. What are you gonna do with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Right. So
yeah,
basically, we need to make people more aware. And I'm so glad, Kamber, that you've joined us for this session. So, this information can be disseminated and people become more cautious. Um,
yeah,
and the other thing is that uh, how can we raise more awareness about multi-factor authentication? We've invited you to the show today, but what would your narrative
mhm,
be? Because I know that a lot of people are still very resistant to change, right? Even in the corporate sector, you've got
yeah.
some senior professionals. So how do you think we can really, raise more awareness or build the right kind of narrative?
See, don't take it as a pain. A lot of things are pain in the ass, and we know that.
Yeah.
But if you take security as a pain, then you will be a victim of crime very soon, because you're going to
Uh-huh.
make sure that you'll do everything to make your life easy, but in return you're also making someone else's life easy to hack you. Okay, convenience
Right.
is one thing. Convenience with security is another thing. Okay, so my narrative, just like Anza, when you told me that having OTP is such a pain when I log into my WhatsApp, I really gave those example
Yeah.
for you, and not just particularly you, for our people around us, right? I say the same thing to my mom. I say OTP is not something that's frustrating. It's just adding some security. So my narrative will be just if you don't have OTP, you need to be worried. If you say, for example, in those things which are valuable to you. So, say, for example, your bank account, if someone asks you for your OTP, okay, or if
Mhm.
you're not setting up your OTP, you need to start setting it up as soon as possible. If your bank doesn't push you for that, ask them to provide you that service. Yeah, sure, it costs 1,000 rupees for SMSs, right? I mean, I
Right.
recently opened a bank account after a decade of being
Yeah.
away from Pakistan, and they charged me 1,000 rupees for them to send me SMS.
Yeah.
But yeah, that 1,000 rupees will help you save your 100,000 rupees that are in your account.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Okay,
couldn't
so
agree
it's
more.
extremely important.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what we can push our providers. So, say for example, we buy a number of things from online e-commerce website. I was just about to, because there's only one name that always comes up. A company starts with D. We
Yeah.
always buy things from there, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not
Uh-huh.
going to take that, but one example. But anywhere that you are buying things from, try and have your bank account either pay by cash, okay, or
Mm-hmm.
um, online. If you are paying, make sure that
Right.
you've got your SMSs switched on. Do not listen to people who say you have won the best thing in the world, and if it looks too good to be true, it's a scam.
It probably
It is
is.
a
It
scam.
probably.
It's a proven thing. Us Pakistanis, we think, oh, Allah did this for us. No, absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Divine
It's a
intervention.
scam. Exactly. It's a scam. So just don't go for it.
Absolutely. And Kamber, it's so important to really expose these matters out in public. I mean, there are a lot of people among us who are too afraid to admit that, oh, I got conned. But unless they share these kind of experiences, more and more people are going to suffer. Um,
Right.
so
Let me
we're
give you
talking
that.
about,
That is an example. Anza, I'm gonna give you an example of me getting conned.
okay.
Okay, 2 months ago. I know you might have a question, but you go for the follow-up question first, and then I'll give you that example.
No, no, no. Please give me the example first. I'm more than
Okay,
happy to.
right, right. So, well, everyone's gonna laugh at me, but yeah, security guy got conned. But I'm not a security guy.
Yeah.
I'm just a sales guy. Okay, I can sell anything. Just I'm a sales guy, not a security guy. But recently, I someone got in touch with me on Snapchat. We added each other somehow. I can't remember how. And they were like, "Oh, they work in Bitcoin." I was like, "Okay, that's very good. This, that, and the other." I work at some London, some exchange where we have our clients' portfolios, so on and so forth. And I was like, "Okay, fine." Whatever that might be. And they kept pushing. They was like, why don't you open an account with us? And I was like, nah, I'm not interested. Right now, I'm not interested. And I kept saying that. In December, my father got diagnosed with last stage cancer. Okay. And so, I needed every bit of money that I could. So I was like, sort it. This £500 that I'm going to open an account with, hopefully will turn into £2,000. This is what the hope was, in a small period of time. Now, this is a fantastic example of too good to be true, because I was told
Yeah.
within two to 3 days, my £500 will be turned into £2,000. I was like, okay, fine. Desperation pushed me to do this. I was like, okay, fine, let's do this. Okay, it's £500. If I lose it, I lose it, whatever. Um, so I opened an account, and this person was throughout with me on messages. Okay, they sent me. Now I opened an account. How? Okay, now the bells started ringing where I opened an account via WhatsApp. They sent me a
Uh-huh.
contract via WhatsApp. Okay, I
Okay.
read the contract. It was a bit iffy. I was like, I'm not entirely sure, but because I knew that person online for past 6 or 8 months, I was like, yeah, I can trust them. We snap, or I see their updates, or we talk on WhatsApp or whatnot. It was an online con that I had. This person created that trust in me in last 6 months that they could con me. They would be doing the same thing with
Oh,
other
wow.
people. Exactly. Because we had an online friendship, okay, they sent everything online. Of course, just like everyone, you can't come into the office because office is shut because of COVID. And, I'll just send you the contract here, man. You're my friend, whatnot. I was like, thank you, man. Just send it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent the contract online. I signed the contract online. You
The
accept that this,
payment
this,
was
this, this,
transferred
this.
online. Yeah.
I opened an account on a Bitcoin exchange, and I transferred the Bitcoins from that exchange into them. Now, once the Bitcoins are gone, it's gone. Okay. If it's legitimate thing, they will come back with profit. Okay. Now,
Okay.
alarm bells. Now, in this whole thing, when after a day, during the day, they were like, oh, your Bitcoin is hitting really well, and 800% profit and whatnot. And I was like, okay, 800% profit, which means X amount. And they wanted
Yeah.
me to give more money to withdraw that money that I've earned. So there are
Okay.
so
Wow.
many alarm
Yeah.
bells. Exactly. So many
Absolutely.
alarm bells. First, an online identity. I didn't know that man personally. Okay. I just knew that, some account manager from some London stock exchange or whatnot,
Mhm.
coin exchange, approached me to say, it's just a sales guy, like I am a sales guy, right? just a
Uh-huh.
sales guy, approached me fine, online, whatnot, kept in touch throughout whatever the period that was. The contract was sent online. The contract, if I had read properly, did not match. The details did not match too much.
Right.
Okay. The second thing, in those things, there was a condition that if it hit a certain percentage, I'd have to pay a certain amount of money to withdraw the profits. Okay,
Right.
during
Absolutely.
the during that 24 hours, that person was in touch with me, even more, of course, that your money has hit the target and more, and so on and so forth. So you need that money. So there are so many alarm bells now. The reason I gave you my own personal example is because when does this happen? It happens in desperation. Most people get
Okay.
conned in desperation, either
I
for
understand.
money or for betterment of their life. Okay,
Right.
so if you
Absolutely.
are in that situation, the narrative, if you are in that situation, do not, I promise you, it will not work out.
Absolutely. And those words are golden and just the apt advice for everyone that's watching right now. Kamber, since we're talking about multi-factor authentication, one of the other things that comes to mind is that slowly, not so slowly actually, rapidly now the world around us is changing, and post COVID as well, a lot of things have had to go online. So yes, I know that even within companies, contracts are being signed online and so on and so forth. However, there are more security concerns, most definitely. But when we talk about multi-factor authentication, what's next? Like what's the next step? What kind of multi-factor authentication are we looking at? And since facial biometric recognition or scanning thumbprints and so on and so forth can also be done, why don't we move towards these kind of technologies for authentication, since that can be maybe that's what the future is about. So what do we have in store? What's happening next?
See, facial recognition is already there. Face ID is a part of your facial recognition, right? You are on your phone, you do this, and it just knows that this is you, and that's it allows you. Or
Right.
you have your fingerprint, which is a part of your
Right.
biometric authentication as well. So these things are already in place. What's next is not just multi-factor authentication. Okay. At the moment, let me
Right.
give you an example, the kind of multi-factor authentication that is available right now. Okay. I gave you an
Mm-hmm.
example of that pin grid, that grid and
OTPs.
pattern-based technology. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I gave you example of fingerprint. I gave you example of face ID. I gave you example of secret questions. Now, there's also what was that, geographical location as well. So say for
Right.
example, if you try to log into your Gmail not from Islamabad to from
Right.
London, for example, okay, it
Uh-huh.
will ask you to verify yourself. That is geographical
Right.
location authentication.
Absolutely.
Okay. um, then there's also, in some corporates, there is the authentication, which is the behavioral authentication. So how, if you type, say for example, at 80 keys per minute, they might, and you start
Wow.
typing at 100 keys per minute, it will stop you. It will authenticate you. Then there are smart cards, of course, available. Old
The
technology, but
RFIDs,
still
right?
there. Hmm?
Are you talking about the
RFIDs,
RFIDs?
exactly.
Yes. Absolutely.
RFIDs also, RFIDs, yeah, kind of smart cards there. You have your hardware token. So these are all the types of multi-factor authentication technologies which are available currently. Next thing is to look past these technologies. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like we've so far discussed, what do we want? We want authentication, but we want authentication with convenience, right? How can you make it convenient for people to be secured, but verify with more layers, say for example. Okay, so what we can do uh, in this case is we have to take one step forward and one step backwards. Okay, because
Uh-huh.
multi-factor authentication sits in the middle. One step backwards, if we take, we have to fix our passwords. Okay, the passwords which we're giving away, say for example, the complex password that came 15 years ago, that
Yeah.
concept has been completely scrapped. That is gone.
Absolutely. It's become
NIST,
obsolete now.
exactly. What NIST is the one that came with that. NIST says you need to have a password which is unique and something that's never been hacked before. Okay, and you
Okay.
don't need to change your password every month, 2 months, 3 months. This is especially for corporates. You don't
Oh,
need to
wow.
change your
Yes,
password every 30,
absolutely.
60, 90 days. Okay, you
Hmm.
only change your password when it's found breached. So two of the most important things: one is you need to have a password that is unique and never been breached before. Second, you only change your password when it's found breached. So you need to work on the part before multi-factor authentication, which is your passwords. Okay. So
Right.
once you've got them fixed, you add an extra
Hmm.
layer of security. Now, in this case, you get two things. One, your security is a lot better because the password, if someone is trying to hack your password, so say for example, two of my passwords online are available in breach database
Right.
in the dark web. Okay, but if I have a unique password, that unique password will not be available. So chances of me getting hacked, unless I'm phished again, are very little.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Second thing
Mhm.
is your OTP. Once you've added your multi-factor authentication, you are now internationally compliant with NIST
Right.
framework. Okay, so say
Yeah.
for example, if we go back to banks, now why do I keep focusing on banks?
Hmm.
Banks have a lot of compliances that they need to fulfill. Okay,
Right.
so you
Right.
have a state bank compliance, which are one of
The
hopefully
regulators
I
here,
asked
we've got
Hassan exactly the regulators. They need you to authenticate on every step of wherever you're trying to log in. Okay, so you need to do that. Then internationally, banks need to comply with PCI DSS, which is if they take card payments, they need to comply
yes,
with that. Okay,
absolutely.
so a number of things. And once they comply with NIST 863, say for example, that's the name of the framework. Once they comply
Yes.
with NIST, they automatically comply with a lot of things. So banks need to,
Hmm.
or not banks. This in this case, banks. I'm telling you, but we need to think about one step before, which is
Hmm.
fixing our password, adding an extra layer of security. Now, one step after is what we've been discussing so far in this last 32 minutes of this conversation is the convenience. How can we go
Convenient.
passwordless? Okay, our
Absolutely. Hmm.
phones, our phones have gone passwordless. Okay, I have
Hmm.
not typed in my PIN code in
Yeah.
ages. Okay,
Neither have I.
you
So now
either
there's only facial.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, your Face ID or your biometric or whatever that might be. Okay, so our phones have gone passwordless. What about corporates? Our corporates are the people who run the
Indeed.
country. Okay, how do we make it convenient for them? So that's something that they need to think about. Um, Passwordless authentication is getting its popularity. It's still early stages, I would say, but it's getting its popularity. So look for passwordless authentication if you want to make it convenient for themselves and for their clients. So say for example, Anza, if you don't have to enter your password in order to log into your bank account, how cool would that be?
Yeah, very, very cool and very convenient because it would, really make life much easier. And that is what technology is supposed to do, right?
Exactly, exactly. So we need to think in that way. And Hassan, I'm sure, can comment on those things quite a lot. He's very well experienced. How
No, I
can we
was
get
actually
hold of those
about.
technologies?
I like you got conned, I got hacked, and that was even without will. My Samsung Cloud account was hacked. I got an email where the hacker was asking me 2.5 Bitcoins, to pay Bitcoins.
Right.
He actually knew my ID also. And that was just before that I started using two-factor authentication on Samsung.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
Wow.
I've
since
been
that
using
day,
it.
now my so now my phone has a 2FA also. Every time I click my phone, I don't believe in facial IDs and not even fingerprints. Sorry, I'm contradicting whatever Kamber has said right now, but I mean every
Yeah.
and like Kamber was here, Dubai is starting from next month. From next month, we don't need to show our Emirates ID in Dubai. All government transactions are facial identified. So you don't need to
Absolutely,
carry your
Oh,
ID and password. They'll do it through facial recognition.
well, that's
absolutely. And there's a
amazing.
lot of potential in facial biometrics because, that is one way that Kamber mentioned we can have a unique password, like your face is your unique password. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we've come to an end towards the session, and unfortunately, we've ran out of time, but we will request Kamber to join us for our forthcoming and upcoming sessions as well. Kamber, thank you so much for all the knowledge that you disseminated today. We're
My
very
pleasure.
grateful. Thank you for making time. Hassan, thank you for putting this together. And
Thank
ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching and being a lovely audience. For those of you who want to learn more about multi-factor authentication or just get in touch with Kamber, he's available on LinkedIn. And for those of you who want to learn about who we are and what we do, please log on to www.cxoforum.global. Ladies and gentlemen, the world around us is changing by the day. There's a lot of innovation that's happening around us. There's a lot of evolution. These are exciting times, and that's how we would like to look at them. So stay safe, stay foolproof, stay secure, and use multi-factor authentication. Up until next time, here's me signing off. Thank you for watching. See you.
Thank you. Cheers
you.
then. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.